So now we're looking at Compass, and as I was mentioning just a second ago, if you have missed any of our sessions that we've had over the last 9 weeks, we're uploading them all to our YouTube channel, and the easiest way you can get to those is from Compass. In the menu, you'll see Newsroom, and if you click on the Newsroom, it's going to take you to the Newsroom page, and over on the Quick Links section right here, you're going to see CMS YouTube. All you need to do is click on that link, and it's going to open it up to the YouTube channel, and then you can see all of our recordings that we have there. The very top one right now would be the data entry part 1 that we talked about last week. So those are all going to be there for you. If you click the playlist, you can select playlist and then go to Compass Chat with Jason, and then that will show you all of the sessions we've done over the last 9 weeks. So that's on our YouTube. And like I said, it's in our Newsroom. Easy way to do that is CMS YouTube. Just click under the quick links. Okay? So let's move on forward. So last week I talked about doing locations and account information and agency. This week we're going to dive a little bit deeper into the weeds, and we're going to talk about zones and contacts. And if you were with us last week, or actually the last couple weeks, we've used this account number to do our testing with. It's DEMO 4020. So I'm going to just do a really quick refresher to show you how to look up an account, or the way I prefer to look up an account on Compass. I use the global search at the top of the page, and I type in whatever I'm looking for. In this case here, I know the account number, so I'm going to go ahead and type in DEMO 4020, hit my go. They only found one account, fortunately, and it took me directly to my location page. So this is where we're going to start, right? So again, from last week's session, we updated the location information. So we've got our customers' information over here on the right-hand side. In the account section, we've added our panel type. We've got an active date. We've sent the panel sent its first signal on the 16th. So that's populated now, so we're in good shape. And then down here at the bottom with our data entry tabs, we did the agencies last week. You'll notice it's a black font. So it's not missing any information now. We can click on that, and you can see the information that we added last week. However, you're going to notice that the zones and the contacts have red font. Why? Well, it's because it's missing information. We want information on those tabs. So we're going to start with the zones. And I'll just say right up front, a lot of our dealers are a little hesitant about adding zones to accounts through Compass. And I think the main reason of that is we have a lot of event IDs. And it's a little overwhelming if you think about how many different event IDs we have. And we have thousands. I mean, probably maybe close to 10,000, somewhere in that range, of different event IDs. But we did a couple different things to try to make it a little bit easier for the users. The very first thing we did was Beth actually created a document of the most commonly used event IDs, and we uploaded that to the Newsroom. So let me jump right back over to the Newsroom and show you. If you go to the Newsroom and go to the Document Library, this tab right here, almost all the way to the bottom, you can see I have it starred as a favorite because I use this document so many times. You click on this PDF, and it's going to open up this document right here. And this is the common used event codes at CMS. And we've got it broken down into 2 different pages. We've got residential, and then on the second page, we've got commercial. Okay, so it's a good time to point this out. So when I'm talking about zones today, what I'm going to be talking about mostly is residential and simple commercial accounts. Okay, because those are pretty easy to do. Now, if you've got fire accounts like NFPA Fire or UL Fire or anything like that, we want to do a little bit further, deeper training with you one-on-one. So I would ask you to call our dealer support department and schedule a time that they can go through data entry on a fire account. And one of the main reasons for that is there are so many more zones on a supervised fire account than there are on like a residential or a commercial fire. Not only do you have to add the point, but you also have to make sure you're adding the restore, the supervisory, and the trouble signals. You got to make sure all that's set up correctly so that it can be monitored correctly. And that's just a lot more than we have time for in one of these sessions. So if you're interested in doing zone entry on fire accounts, I ask you to call dealer support and just schedule a time that they can kind of sit down with you. And if you've gone through this part, you'll know a pretty good chunk of it. It probably won't take that long to go through that training with dealer support just for the fire zones. Okay, so the other thing that jumping back over here to the ease of our event IDs. So you've got the document in the Newsroom, but what we've also done is we have broken down our event IDs based on the service type. So the first three letters of an event ID tell you what type of event it is. So BUR for burglary, FIR for fire, carbon monoxide is COD, panic is PAN. You kind of get the gist of this, right? TRO for trouble. I can even go down here to our commercial and we can look at holdup. HOL is holdups. Okay, so the first three letters are going to tell you what type of event that is. Okay, now after that, you're going to see 3 digits. And those are basically just computer generated when the event IDs were added to our monitoring system. But some of them have, you know, there's a gist to some of them. Let's just say the first digit, if it's a 0, it's going to be residential. Okay, if it's a 5, it's going to be commercial. Okay, that's the majority of the rule. There are exceptions to it, like there is in everything in life, right? There's always exceptions to every rule. But for the most part, if it starts with a 0, that's going to be residential. If it starts with a 5, it's going to be commercial. Okay? So are you supposed to sit here and memorize all these event IDs or anything like that? No, you don't, because I don't know them. Beth doesn't know them, and she knows data entry even better than I do. What we've done, though, is when you're pulling up the event IDs, we put the description right next to the event ID. So all you really need to do is look at the description. So when I go to start adding zones to my account, you're going to see it's going to be really easy. If it's a Berg system and I don't know that it's supposed to be BUR025, I can look at the description next to BUR025. It's going to tell me it's a Berg, it's residential, and then it's going to have the description for the call string. And these letters out here tell you exactly what our monitoring reps are going to do if this event comes in. So PR for premises, PD for police department, CL for call list. By the way, BUR025 is our standard operating procedure for residential Bergs, okay, at CMS. This is how we pretty much handle. If you don't tell us anything differently, this is how we're going to handle all Bergs. We're going to call the premises first to try to get a false alarm, then we're going to call the police department, and then we're going to call the contact list for notification of the dispatch. Now, in the 5-state region down where we're at, Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, North Carolina, we've all got state laws that call for enhanced call verification. We call it ECV. Some people call it 2-call verification. All that means to you is that the monitoring center has to call 2 separate phone numbers before we're allowed to dispatch the police department on Berg signals. Does not apply to fires, does not apply to panics or anything like that. For Berg signals only, if you're in an ECV area, you have to have that second call or that second phone number to be called before dispatch. We don't handle that on the event ID level. We actually handle it on the contact level, and I'm going to show that to you in just a few minutes when we get to the contacts. Okay, so across the board, nationwide, whether you're in an ECV area or not, our standard procedure is PR, PD, CL. And then what happens is if you're in the ECV, that ECV contact gets stamped in between the PR and PD. But again, you don't see that on the event code level. Okay, so talking about the event codes again, you know, all you need to really do is focus on the description. And I'm going to show that to you when we start adding the zones. So you'll see like FIR 026. Again, that is our standard operating procedure for a residential. We're calling the premises first, then we're dispatching the fire department, then we're calling the call list. Now for commercial applications, 664. Remember how I said there's exceptions to every rule for the numbering? Well, here's your first one. It's a 6 instead of a 5. But this is our standard operating procedure for fires, for commercials. We dispatch first, then we go back to the call list, or to go back to the premises, and then the call list for notification purposes. Okay, for commercial systems, we're dispatching the fire first. I'm talking about our standard operating procedures. I mentioned that a few times. You as an alarm company, you can use different event IDs if you want. I've got several dealers that prefer to use FIR 164 for their residential fires. They want us to dispatch first. You know, probably they're not in an area where they're going to pay for false alarm fines and that type of thing, but they would prefer us dispatch the fire department first, then call the premises or call list. And that's perfectly fine. You can do that. I'm just telling you what our standard operating procedure is for these events. Okay. The other thing we'll talk about real quick are residential. We use panics. Okay. So panics and duress and holdups are essentially the same thing. The difference being holdup is for commercial applications, and then the panic and duress are going to be used for residential systems. Okay. And if it's a silent panic. So if you guys are programming into the panel a silent panic, the alarm or the siren doesn't go off, that event ID is typically a PAN150. We call the police department. We don't call anybody else. We don't want to call the premises because we don't want to alert the perpetrator, and we don't call the call list because we don't want to end up having like a John Wayne scenario that tries to show up and save the day instead of the police being there. So on a silent panic, we don't want anyone knowing that we're calling anybody except for the police department. Now, you may be programming in there a audible. So if they put the code in there for a panic and the siren goes off, typically you can use PAN025 for something like that. And then we'll handle that pretty much like a regular BERG with a premise call, PD call, and the call list, because we're not surprising anybody at that point, right? The homeowner is probably setting that panic off and hopes to scare the person off. But we're going to go ahead and call the premises first before we call the police department on an audible. Same thing down here on the bottom for your holdups. You know, like if you have your holdup buttons under your cashier's tray or something like that, most of the time those are silent panics, and that's going to be an HOL 150, and we're just going to call the police department on those. Okay, so that's kind of the way you kind of peruse over this two-piece letter or two-page letter. If there's questions that you have down the road, you know, hey, you want this string called. Like, for example, I don't see up here, we don't have BUR013 or BUR016. Oh, BUR13 is on here, but 016 is not on here. You know, you can look those up on the zone page as well, and as long as you know how to read the descriptions, you know exactly what those event IDs do. Okay, so again, for this report here, this two-page letter, all you have to do is from the newsroom, when you click on the newsroom, you're just going to click on the document library, and at the very bottom of there, you're going to see the common event codes. Open that up. It's in PDF document, and that's exactly what it's going to look like. You can even print it off if you want to at that point, or save it to your computer. Okay, so that part saves a lot of people trouble because they see what we're using. Again, you saw for the residential, we only had about 7 or 8 listed, and there's probably close to 1,000 different event IDs just for BERGs alone. So we're going to jump back over to our account. This is the Ricky and Rennie account, and we're going to jump right into our zones. There's a couple different ways you can add zones. Okay, I'm going to show you real quickly what I call the slow way, which is add a single zone. So you click over here, add a zone, and you'll see just one zone at a time pops up, right? So now I can start typing in, and the first thing I got is my zone ID. That's the point. So zone 1, and I'm just assuming that, you know, most of the time we're doing a residential system, the front door is usually zone 1. I mean, I know there's some exceptions to that rule, but most of the time it's going to be front door. So that's exactly what we're just going to do right now. We're just going to do a front door. So that's a BERG. Now the state, I just type in the letter A. If you drop down, you'll see some of the selections on here for arm, disarm, restore. We only use the arm right now. Oh, okay, so it's alarm because that's what's coming in, and we treat it as an alarm. So pretty much everything you do, every zone that you enter, you're going to enter it with a state of alarm. Now, I click down here to my event ID, right? So if I've got my document in front of me from the newsroom, I can see that, and I remember Jason told me that their standard is BUR025. I can simply type in BUR025. It's going to populate just like that. It's going to find it, and boom. Now you can see I've got my event ID. I've got my description out to the side. It's a BERG. It's a residential. We're going to call the premises. Then we're going to call the police department, and then we're going to call the call list, right? That's nice and simple. But let's say that I don't know that, and let's say I don't have the document in front of me for some reason, and the newsroom's not working for some reason. We can just type in BUR, and what the system will do at that point is it'll load all my BUR events that I can select from. And again, all you have to do is look at the descriptions. So that very first one, do I have to know what BUR004 is? No. I just have to look at it and say, all right, at the BERG, it's a residential. The monitoring center is going to call the premises, then the alarm company, then the call list, and then finally the police department. Okay, so that's someone that does not want us dispatching police department until the final call, right? They want us making as many phone calls as we possibly can before we dispatch. But it could be in use. Maybe that person, maybe they've got a customer that has had a lot of false alarms or something like that, and they don't want to get the false alarm fines anymore. So they want as many calls to be made as possible. that could be there. But now you can kind of scroll down here, and I mentioned BUR016 isn't on our commonly used sheet, but right there, we do have a lot of dealers that use this, where we're calling the premises first, then the call list, and then the police department. So it's like ECV enhanced pretty much at that point, because we're calling not just 2 phone numbers, but we could potentially be calling 4, 5, 6 phone numbers before we finally get to the police department. Okay, so you can just kind of scroll through here, and you can see all the different events in here. And again, right down here, when I finally get to 025, I just select it, and it's going to populate for me. Okay, now these bottom 3 fields, we're not talking about much today, because those deal mostly with the fire accounts, zones to restore and the zone 2 restore. That's stuff that they'll talk to you about in dealer support. So if you want to get that fire training. Okay, so that's the way, and that's all I have to do, right? I've got my account number, I've got my zone, I've got my description, and I've got my event ID. Now I can just hit save. Okay, that's all fine and dandy if I've got one zone on an account, and that's all I need to add, right? I mean, why not do it that way if I'm only doing one single account, or if I'm adding one single account to an existing account that's got several zones on it already. I don't need to touch all those other ones. I'll just do the add zone. But again, I call that the slow way. Now, what I prefer doing is the quicker way. You click this blue button right here that says Manage Multiple Zones, and it opens up an entire zone page. Okay, so this is nice because now, even though I myself am not a very good typist, as anyone can attest to that if they've seen my trainings over the past few weeks, but I can still start typing in these fields and just use my tab button. I don't have to use my mouse. So now I'm just going through here, and you'll see the state automatically defaults to alarm on here. And now I can do, if I know I'm using BUR025, I can just type that in, and I tab down to my next zone. And now I've got my burgs in there, right? Because this is a nice, simple residential. And now let's go ahead and add our fire, because we were able to sell the customer on a fire. So we'll type kitchen heat. And again, if you don't remember what the standard operating procedures are, or what we use, or what you're using on your account, just type in just the FIR and let the drop down pop in there and see what you want. So in this case here, I chose our standard operating procedure of the FIR 026. That's our fire, residential, premises, FD, and then the call list. Okay, so that's going to be, and that's all you have to do. You can sit there and keep adding all you want. You can see how quick it is to add multiple zones instead of doing it one at a time, hitting save, and then going back in and doing it that way. And then if you run out, you'll see I've got 10 showing right here. I can hit save and manage more, and then it's going to save what I've typed in there, and then it's going to give me a new zone page when I need that zone page. So I can sit here and add, 20, 30, 40, 50 zones, and it doesn't take hardly any time at all, especially if you know what event IDs. If you're not having to search for the event ID all the time, it's very, very easy to do that, okay? Real quick question came up. I'm noticing on the chat. I think Beth answered it. But if there is more than one account number on a location, you may need to select that one here. You'll see here with the drop down, I've only got the one account number. But if I'm adding from this page here, you'll need to make sure you select that account number. That comes in handy most of the time that's going to come in when you have like a POTS line that has one account number, and then maybe like an AlarmNet account number or something like that, or some kind of cell unit that has a separate account number. You just want to make sure that you're adding it to the correct one. Okay. Now, again, we could add some more on here if we needed to. We could go in here and we could say key fob panic. You don't necessarily have to put panic because that's what we're going to type in here. And we know that this is a silent panic. So we can type keypad or key fob. And then we'll put our duress. Actually, we won't put duress. We'll put PAN. There we go. And we have our panic 150. So that's in there as well. So you'll see the event IDs, and there's going to be a few other event IDs that come up that are a little bit different than the BUR, the FIR, the PAN. and that has to do with auto notification purposes. Okay, and we're going to get to that in just a second because that's going to tie into our auto notify contacts when we get to the contact page. But for most part of it, you know, if we're just handling these just as regular old signals and everything else, nothing else is taking place, we've got our zone page set up. So we've got our zones 1 through 5, we've got 3 birds, we've got our fire, and now we have our silent panic on here for the key fob as well. So I see some questions coming in. I'm going to stop for 2 seconds as I'm going to hit this save button, and it's going to take me back out to the zone page. Does anyone have any other questions right now that pertain to the zones? Like I said, I've seen some questions coming in for Beth to answer, and I see she's handling that. But I just stopped for just 2 seconds just to let anyone ask a question before we move on to contacts. So the contact ID, if you're talking like the E code, that really comes into play on the system type. So your system type is set up with your E codes. And this one particular here has JMAR on it. That just stands for, you know, just a mere alarm residential. And if I were to pull that account up, which watch this, you can pull up your system types if you want. So this is my system type that I was created for my dealer number right here. And it's JMAR, and you can see it's for my contact ID and my feed. Now, if I go to my zones on here, there's all my contact ID system types, or my signals. So a lot of troubles, you know, even your timer tests and stuff like that, you don't necessarily have to put those on the zone page itself because it gets picked up on your system type. So you're not putting your E codes on the zone page per se. Like if I go down here to my 302, let's find E302. I know my, went too far. Still went too far. Oh, page 2. So I know like my E302 is my low battery and my E301 is AC failure. And you can see here I've got them set up on my contact ID system type for log only. So those come in and they just log to the event history. So that's where you're hitting your contact ID zones, your E codes and stuff like that. They're getting picked up on your system type that gets tied to every account. Okay, does that answer that question that came in for viewer 23? Yeah, and Beth is right. We can definitely get you a list of your contact or your system types. That's a very easy thing to pull. I will tell you this, just real quick. This is a little bit off the topic, but it's a real quick way to do it. If you don't want to wait for dealer support, or you don't want to ask them to get a list of your system types, if you go to the accounts page, which is the main page, everyone, when you log in, you get to the accounts page. If you go to the location name, and it'll pop in, contains, you type in what your dealer number is. So in my case here, my dealer number is 2079150. So that's your dealer number with CMS. If you type that in and click filter, it's going to pull up your system types. All of your system types that are assigned to your company have your dealer number first in the location name. And then in the address, they'll kind of explain what those are. Okay. Well, actually, in the name and the address, they'll tell you what they are. So if you want a quick way to find what your system types are, which you have all set up for your company, and we talked about this a few weeks ago, if you don't have custom system types set up for your company, I highly suggest doing that. You can call dealer support or you can call your BDSR and ask them, you want to work with them about getting custom system types set up. It's a big time saver down the road because even if we're handling all of your accounts just like our standard operating procedure is, and you say, well, you guys have your own system types, you just use that one. Well, down the road, you may decide that you don't want the AC failures to be log only. Maybe you want us to do something else with that. If you have your own custom system type set up, then it makes it very easy. We go in there, we update this one single account number, and then it affects every single account that it's on. So we don't have to touch all of your accounts. We just have to touch just the system type. So if you don't have your own system type set up, again, talk to your BDSRs or dealer support and get those set up for you, okay? It'll be a huge, huge, huge time saver down the road. Okay, so that's how you can find what your system types are. Really simple, and you can see how we're handling all that stuff. Now I'm going to jump right back over to our locations page. And we've got our zones all set up. There's our zone page, all nice and neat. It tells you everything that's there. And now we're going to slide on over to our contacts. Okay, so contacts is really simple, I think. But there's a lot of things that you can do with a contact. The very first thing you'll notice is, one, it's red font. That means I'm missing contacts. I don't have anything on this page, so I need to update that. So how do I do that? Well, from the contacts page, you'll see the blue button that says Add Contact. It's pretty simple. You click that blue button, right? So now I get to the Add New Contact page. All right? There are 4 types of contacts that you can have on an account, okay? And they're all listed right there where you'll see type. And you'll see general, phone, email, and SMS. So my email and my SMS contact types are basically for auto notification purposes. We'll get to that in just a second. My general and my phone, those you're going to see a lot more on your account. Okay, your general is going to be used for any contact that might have a passcode on the account, or they might be just an open and close user or something like that. But it's someone on the account that's not being called in case of an emergency. Okay, so that's just a general type of contact. So the next one is going to be a phone contact. So your phone contact is going to be someone what? Well, obviously it's going to be someone that gets called in the case of an emergency. So in this case here, we're going to go ahead and set up a phone contact for this account. Now, like I was saying earlier, in Florida, we have the ECV contact rule. So all of our accounts have to have ECV contact on them, have to have that second phone number called. So in this case here, we've got 407-551-2121. That's Ricky's cell phone. That would be the first number we call. Now we want to go ahead and set up our second person or second phone number that's going to be on the contact list, and we're going to make it Rennie, Ricky's wife, right? So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do our data entry. This is really easy. So we type in Rennie's first name and her last name is the same. Now she's going to be a phone type, right? So we're going to click phone. And now our next few fields, they're going to be the same whether it's a general or a phone contact. You can give this person a PIN if you want. So if they're going to have their own passcode, we're not going to give them access to the site code word. Then we're going to go ahead and give them a PIN. Now in this case here, this is Rennie, Ricky's wife, so she's the homeowner. So it's probably safe to assume that she's going to use Twinkle, which is the site code word on the account. That's all good. So we leave the PIN field blank, and the authority level stays at a 4. Now, what are the authority levels that I'm talking about here? So the very first one, if this field is blank, it's going to be a 4. And all this authority level does is it just tells our monitoring reps, you know, what they should expect when they're talking to this contact. Okay, so when they see that this level is a 4, they know that if she's going to verify a false alarm or something to that extent, or ask the account to be placed on test or whatever, they know that she's going to be giving Twinkle. They know that they're going to be looking for Twinkle, not a passcode associated with her. Okay, so that's all that 4 means. Now, if she were to have her own passcode, let's say that Ricky doesn't trust her for some reason, so he gives her her own passcode. We're going to make it goofy. You'll notice when I tab out of the PIN field, the authority level automatically updates to a number 1 full access. So that's our second most commonly used authority level on the contact level. Okay, so full access. So this means now when we're talking to Rennie, if she's going to ask for a false alarm, she can basically use either Goofy, which is her passcode, or she's going to use Twinkle. Again, she's the homeowner, so she could use either one. Most of the time, if you're giving someone a PIN on your contact list, it's because you don't want them to use the site code word. It might be a babysitter, it might be a housekeeper or someone like that, someone that may set off the alarm and have to call into CMS to verify a false alarm, but they're not going to be on the call list or anything like that, and you don't want them knowing what the site code word is. Okay, so there's some other code or authority levels that we use, and if you click on the drop-down box, you'll see that. And we've got a bunch of them, but I'm just going to touch on a few of the most commonly used ones. One is no data changes. So if I didn't want Rennie to make any kind of data changes on my account, she can verify a false alarm and she can place the account on test, but I don't want her updating any of the data on here, then I can make her a level 2, no data changes. If I'm a open and close, or if this is an open and close account, I can actually set these people up for open and close only, so that now if I put in, I don't know, 5, 4, 6, 7 for tracking purposes, and I go ahead and I make them open and close only, now we know that they're only using that 5, 4, 6, 7 to arm or disarm the panel. Okay? That one's not used quite as much, but what a lot of my dealers are using right now are 17. Okay, so a lot of dealers are using 17. That is, give no PIN information and no data changes. So now if I set Rennie up with 17, she can verify a false alarm and she can place the account on test, again, like normal, but she can't say, hey, could you tell me what Joe's passcode is, or can you tell me what the site code word is? 17 prohibits us from giving her that information. Also, it's a no data change as well. So if she says, can you change my passcode? We're going to say, we're unable to do that. You'll have to contact the alarm company for that. So a lot of my customers or dealers right now are setting up contacts with a 17 if they're not the homeowner that's on the call list. Okay, now, for Rennie, she's going to be using the site code word because, again, she's the homeowner, right? So we back that out. It changes automatically back to a level 4, which is really nice for us. It does it for you. You don't have to even think about it. Now, the next field here is panel user number. You're really only using that mostly if you have an open and close account and your customer says, hey, why does my report show user 6 or user number 7 or user number 8? Well, if you get that user's name, you can assign that user number to here. So if I say this is user 8, now my CS number populates, right? So I match that, make sure that's correct. And now when Rennie uses her panel code to arm or disarm, it's not going to show up number 8 anymore. It's going to show Rennie Roden is the one that armed or disarmed it at that point. Okay, so if you're providing customers with open and closed mail-out reports or anything like that, and they're asking for, the people's names that are arming and disarming and not the numbers, that's exactly how you do that. You go to the panel number field, you enter that. Of course, you've got to find out what your technicians have programmed into the panel for the people, but then you do that, and then on the event history and on the mail reports you provide your customers, it's going to have their names there and not the user number. Okay, this is a residential account, so I'm going to go ahead and back that right back out of there. You'll notice that now that I don't have something in there, it backs out the account number as well. So, moving on down, this is a phone person, so what are we going to do? Well, we're obviously going to have a phone number for her. So let's go ahead and add her phone number. And, if you know the phone type, go ahead and type that in there as well. Now, you'll also notice as soon as I tabbed out of the phone number field, the add to call list box automatically checked. It does that by default because we assume that if you're entering a phone number for this person, you want them notified in case of an emergency. You can uncheck that if all you're doing is keeping this phone number on your records for informational purposes only. You don't want this person called, but you want to know what their cell phone number is just in case you as an alarm company ever needs to reach out to them. You can uncheck that box, but you'll notice it automatically checked as soon as I tabbed out of there because if you're doing a phone type contact, again, we just assume automatically, and 99% of the time that's the way it is, that it's going to be added to the call list, so it's checked. Okay, now the last step we have to do for Rennie, who's going to be our ECV contact list person, is go down here and you're going to see contact list field with a drop down. And all you have to do is click on that drop down and you'll see that very first one is ECV. Okay, so you select ECV, it populates in there, and then that's it. So now when I hit save, you're going to see that the ECV contact list is assigned to Rennie as the first person on the contact list. So now her phone number will be the second number dialed in case of an emergency or in burglary zone before we dispatch the police department. Okay, so that's all I need to worry about at this point. So I'll go ahead and hit save. And now you'll see I've got Rennie. She's a phone contact. She's call list only, so she doesn't have her own passcode, as we can see there. And down there you see her ECV contact list. Okay, now let's go ahead and just real simply, we're going to add another phone contact. So we'll click phone, and this is going to be Dobie. Now, Dobie is my neighbor, and I don't want him knowing what the code word is, so he's not allowed to give the code word. So I'm going to go ahead and give him his own passcode. And again, I'm going to make it like a lot of my other dealers are doing and give it a 17. That way he can't ask for what my passcode is, and he can't make any kind of data changes. Okay, now I'm going to go in here, I'm going to add his phone number. That's his cell, like everyone has a cell. That's all I have to do to add Dobie, right? I'm not adding him to the contact list because I don't want him called before dispatch. I've already satisfied the ECV law by having Ricky's phone number and Rennie's phone number called before the police dispatch. So that's all I have to do for him. Now I go down here and I hit save, and then you'll see the system adds him in as a second person on the contact list. You'll see he's a phone type. He does have a PIN because it's listed there, and you'll see it's at the level of give no PIN information or no data changes, and you'll see that he does not have the ECV on there. Now, let's say, for example, that Ricky and Rennie are going on vacation. They're going to head out to California and visit the farm out there, and they want Dobie to replace Rennie on the ECV. It's fine that we're calling Ricky. They're okay with that, but they don't want us to call both numbers because they're both going to be in California. So they want Dobie called second. How do we do that? It's really simple. We put our cursor on either one, but we're going to put our cursor on Dobie's name. We're going to push and hold the left mouse button and then drag it to the top and then let go of the mouse. And it automatically changes Dobie to be the first person, and it updates the contact list. So now Dobie is the ECV contact. So now in case of a burglary, we're going to be calling Ricky, and then we'll call Dobie. Okay? When you come back from vacation, it's real easy to change. You just go ahead and drag it and drop it again. And then the ECV also updates there. Okay? So that's really how easy it is to do your phone contacts. And you can add as many as you want. As you add them, they will be the bottom person on the contact list. So you may need to change them. So if someone says, hey, I need you to add, Daisy Duck, but I want her to be second on the contact list, she's going to get automatically added as third, but you'll just have to drag her up to the second, just like I did a second ago with Dobie and Rennie. Okay? So what's some other contacts that we might add? Well, like I said a few minutes ago, we've got some generals that could be just a housekeeper. And we'll just say Daisy Duck is my housekeeper. She's going to have a PIN, and she's going to be a 17 as well. And that's all we're going to do. Notice there's nothing else down here, right? All she does is has a PIN. We hit save, and now she's an other contact. She's got a passcode on the account, but she's not being called in case of an emergency. Okay? Now, one other contact I'm going to talk about as far as general is, I didn't talk about the authority level yet, but I know some of you out there are using verbal duress codes for your customers. So if we call them in case of emergency from CMS and they give us this verbal duress code, we're basically saying, have a nice day, we're hanging up, we're acting like nothing's wrong, and we're immediately calling the police department and letting them know we just got a verbal duress code. It used to be a whole lot more prevalent back in the day. I don't know that a lot of people are using verbal duress codes anymore, but enough are that we still have this available. So what I wanted to show you was if you're going to add a verbal duress code to an account, it's really simple to do. We just type in duress dispatch PD with an exclamation point. So in the last name field, you're going to type in duress dispatch PD. You're going to leave the type as general. In the PIN, you're going to type in what that verbal passcode is. Okay, so red in this case. And then for the authority level, you're going to type in D. Okay, and that's going to populate duress dispatch PD. That's all you do for a verbal duress code. Okay, duress dispatch PD in the last name, whatever the verbal passcode is or verbal duress code is in PIN, and then the authority level of D. You hit save, that's it. It'll populate down here at the other contacts. Now, one of the reasons why, and I'll just say this now, one of the reasons why a lot of people have gone away from verbal duress codes is we have a rule at CMS. if someone gives us this code while we're talking to them, we're dispatching the police. So if we call them and we're talking to Daisy, for example, because she set off the alarm, and she says it's a false alarm, everything's fine, we're going to say, can I get your passcode? And she's going to say, it's red or blue. I'm not sure which. Well, guess what? She just said red. We just heard her say red. That's the verbal duress code. So we're going to say, okay, thank you, have a nice day. We're going to hang up, and we're going to dispatch the police. And we're going to tell them that it was the duress code. So they're going to hopefully come a little bit quicker that way because they heard the duress code. So that's why a lot of people, there's no gray areas, and you don't want gray areas in this situation, right? You want black and white, and this is the way it works. So a lot of dealers have gone away from the verbal duress codes only because customers tend to get confused sometimes, and they're just not sure, and they'll just say, it's this or this or this or this. And unfortunately, one of those thises is the verbal duress code. So that's other contact. Now, let's jump over to our SMS and our email auto notification contacts. Okay, I talked about this, I think, in week 2 or week 3, so this is a video in and of itself on YouTube, and it really got more into it. So I'm not going to get real deep into this, but I want to show you once again, how to set up a contact for SMS or email auto notification. Okay, the most important difference between the two of these is with SMS, the contact that you set up has to accept the alerts that are going to be coming to them. Okay, they're going to get a welcome message that says you've been added to this account to receive alerts. You've got to accept that or you're not going to get those alerts. Okay, with email, they don't have to accept a welcome message. The email will just automatically start rolling once you get it set up for them. Okay, so that's really the biggest difference between the two, email and SMS. Email, they don't have to accept. SMS, they do have to accept. It's coming from a short code, and that was part of the agreement when we signed up with the company for those accounts or for those text messages to be guaranteed delivery. The user has to accept the welcome message, and then they can also opt out at any time. So in this case here, what we're going to do is we're going to set Ricky, who's the homeowner, we're going to set him up with SMS auto notification, okay, because he wants to get notified on some of the events. Not only are we going to call him, but we're going to also give him an SMS message as well. So we're going to go ahead and type in his name here, and we're going to make him an SMS contact. Now, when I make him SMS, you're going to notice I don't have a phone number anymore. Well, I do have a phone number, but it's not part of the call list per se. It's the SMS phone number. So SMS mobile phone number, we know this is 407-555 or 551, and then it's 2121. So now when I tab out of here, you're going to see this little button turn on. So send SMS notifications. You'll see the little note right there that says request to accept SMS notifications will be sent to the phone number. They have to accept it before they start receiving any SMS messages. Now below that, I've got a couple more selections. For the alert on, it defaults to always. That means that he's going to get a text message all the time, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. If I have it selected here for whatever event I select him to receive. Okay, it defaults to that because most of the time people are signing up for SMS notifications. They want that. Okay, but let's say, for example, that he says, you know what, I don't want to get it all the time. I only want to get it, this is for my house, and I only want to get it when I'm at work. Because if I'm not at work, I'm at home, I know what's going on. I don't need to get SMS notifications then. So you can set it to only, and you can say, okay, Ricky, when do you work? Well, I work Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. So now we can change the days. We change the times. There's 8 to 5. So now when I set this up for auto notification, whatever events he's going to get notified on, he's only going to get a text message Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Okay? All the other times he's not getting anything. Okay? Now, vice versa or likewise, whatever you want to say, let's say, for example, is that this is not his home. Let's say it's his business. So this is his office, and he says, I only want to get the only time I need to get this is except for this time. So I'm at the office Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. I know what's going on during those time frames. I'm there at the office. So except for these times, I want to get an SMS notification. So that's the difference between only and except. Only is he's only going to get them only during this time frame, except he's going to get it all other times except for this day and time. Okay, and it's just kind of, it's the way you want to word it or the way you want to work it, and it just depends on whether, a lot of times, again, if it's a residential versus a commercial office or something like that. But with all that said, you can set that up for the customer, but it's going to default to always, because 99.99% of the people that get set up for SMS, they want to get that all the time. So there's your always. Now, my events. This is where it's going to drive back to our event IDs maybe. So if I leave this selected to all, and Ricky says he wants to get notified of Berg signals, I leave this set to all, and I change this to Berg right down here. Now, I don't have to go back to the zone page, because the system will automatically say, okay, for every Berg that could come in, whether it's on the system type or whether it's on the zone page, it's going to go to Ricky, and he's going to get an SMS notification. I don't have to touch anything. I leave it set to all, and it's all good. It picks everything up. But let's say, for example, that Ricky says, I only want to get, I don't want all my Bergs. That's too much. I've got too big of a house. I only want to get an SMS notification on the front door. I don't want all my Bergs. I just want the front door, and that's it. In that case there, what you're going to do is you're going to select specific. And by selecting specific and then the Bergs right down here, now what I have to do is I've got to go back to my zone page and update the event ID. So what do I mean by that? Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to select Bergs and specific, and we're going to hit save. So we're going to save this contact. And you'll notice the note right there. It says, please be sure to update all event IDs. So as that's refreshing, I can now go to my zone page, and zone 1 is the only zone that he wants to get notified on, so I need to update this one zone. So I can do it one of two ways. I can click the pencil to update just one at a time. I can also click the manage and go right here. Now, what we do with auto notify, whether this is an email or an SMS notification, if you have to update an event ID for this, what we've done is we've made it pretty simple. We drop the third letter and we add an A at the beginning. So in this case here, what I want to do is I want to back this out and I want to do ABU025. Now, that's a Berg residential premises PD call list with the ECD person, but it's got the A in it for auto notify. Okay, so now if you didn't catch that because it populated pretty fast, there's the A at the end. So when you see that A in the bracket, that indicates that that's an auto notify. Okay. Does everyone else have me? I see that viewer 24 said they lost audio. Does everyone else hear me okay right now? Okay, so everyone else does. All right, so good. So viewer 24, hopefully, well, obviously they can't hear me, so I can't tell them. Beth, if you don't mind just shooting to them and say viewer 24 and shooting to them, say, ask them to follow those instructions again on how to get audio back. Yep, there you go. Perfect, thank you. So in this case here, that's all I have to do with this. So Ricky only wants to get notified of zone 1. So I'm only updating that one single zone. I'm leaving everything else the same. So I'm going to hit my save, and now I've got my front door, my BUR025 for my second and third zones, but my first zone is now ABU025. And that works with everything. So all of our events that we have, if it's fire, it's AFI. If it's panic, it's APA. So those are the way you do it. You just put an A at the beginning and you drop that third letter. The numbers all stay exactly the same, okay? So that's how you're going to handle an auto notification purpose and they are principal where they're only going to get notified of one single zone, or maybe two zones, but not all zones. If they select to get all zones or all service types, then you don't have to go back to the event page, to the zone page and update that. And you'll see when we added Ricky, he's now an SMS contact, and he is a pending contact. He will remain a pending contact until he accepts that welcome message. Okay, so that's very important to know. He won't start getting those notifications until he accepts that. So what I would want to do as a dealer is, probably maybe tomorrow, maybe the next day or something like that, when I log into Compass, I want to jump up here to my dashboard, and this is something I've talked about in the past as well. On the dashboard, we have a tab called SMS Exceptions. And if I go over here to the SMS Exceptions, this will show me any of my pending SMS phones. And I can see right here on line 3, there's Ricky Rodent still pending. So what I want to do as a dealer is I want to go ahead and give him a call again. Hey, Mr. Rodent, I noticed that you haven't accepted the welcome message to receive the alerts yet for your bird signals. And he may say, yeah, I didn't know what that was, so I deleted it. So yeah, I don't know what to do. Well, as a dealer, I can sit here and say, okay, let me resend that to you. So I click that, I resend it to him. While you're on the phone with him, you can say, okay, it's going to be coming to you in just a second. And then once they get it, there it goes. The welcome message was sent to the mobile number, and they're good to go. Now you can walk them through exactly what they need to do. Just click the link to accept it, and then they can get it, and then it will get removed from this page right here. And then on the locations page, now he won't show as a pending. He'll actually show as an active, and that's your notification right there. Once this pending changes to active, now you know that is an active SMS. He's receiving the notifications he needs to receive. If you ever need to update him, he may say, hey, I'm getting my birds, but it would be nice if I could get my fires as well, since I know we got the kitchen heat in there. Yeah, just go in here and save that and set that up, and then you're good to go. Okay? So you can edit those contacts and do whatever you need to as well on those. So that's our contacts and our zones that I wanted to talk about today in our session. So we're coming up on the